What's up, everybody? We're back for episode 6. I'm here with Joe Solecki. Thank you for coming. Joe is a former MMA fighter, retired from the UFC, and he has started a jiu-jitsu academy here in Gastonia. So he's sitting down with me today. I actually went to the wrong place, but he was still willing to do it with me, so here we are. So I kind of want to start off maybe all the way from the beginning.
Yeah.
I know you're from New Jersey.
Yes, yep.
First question, actually, is there a Central Jersey?
That's a great question. No, for us, we always just said North and South Jersey. The people that live in Central Jersey would tell you there is. But, and really, when you're in South Jersey, we don't even think about North Jersey. It's just New York. And it really comes down to, like, are you New York or are you Philly? Because those are the two, you know. So we are closer to Philly. So Philly sports, Philly foods, Philly traditions.
See, with the toolbox.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That was a gift from a friend, and they know us very well. So yeah, definitely more South Jersey, Philadelphia, way less New York. Even though when I go up now, like I'll make a trip out of it. I'll go from where I grew up to New York to compete or something. It's like 90 minutes. I'm like, it's really not far at all. So
there's two people I went to school with. One of them, she's I think from South Jersey, and she says there's no Central Jersey.
Yeah.
And the guys in my Bible study, he's from Central Jersey. So I always ask people now when they say they're from New Jersey. But
yeah, the people that live there think it exists, and then the people that aren't from there know it doesn't. So
yeah. But I saw that you started jiu-jitsu at 6. So tell me, like, why you started or something like that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was, like 4 at the time, and like every other little kid, you like what you watch on TV. I wanted to be a Power Ranger. But I didn't think I was going to, like, be a Power Ranger. But the original Power Rangers, they did like karate, so they were doing like it's like the two guys on it were always doing forms and sparring and stuff. So I wanted to do karate. I was too young to really do anything. I was 4, but my brother was playing baseball at the time, so my parents just wanted to switch it up, do something new. So they put him in it, and they're like, if he likes it, and you still want to do it when you're kindergarten age, and you can start doing it as well. So he did it. He was doing really good. And then the coach, he actually runs the tournament that comes around a lot, or he may have sold it since then, but he started the tournament, The Good Fight, Jim Fortunato. So he was the owner of the school. He had been going to Philadelphia, which, like we just said, wasn't very far away, with one of his closest friends, John Hassett, who became my lifelong coach. They were karate guys. They were going into the city, learning jiu-jitsu, and then they had gotten their blue belts, which back then, it would sound kind of silly now, like somebody being a blue belt and like having an academy, really. But back then, that was unheard of, so they've been training for like a year or 2, getting pretty good, and then he switched the whole school over. So he grandfathered in the karate students, and everybody else that was coming in was starting in the jiu-jitsu classes. So I ended up starting jiu-jitsu. I call it God's hand because I ended up doing it my entire life. It was kind of like I was meant to do it. But, from the outside looking in, an accident or just kind of like a goofy mistake, At that point in time, my brother had already done the karate, started the jiu-jitsu. My parents were fine with it. They liked it. Still had the discipline aspects, martial arts. So, it was awesome. I ended up doing karate later on when we trained there for like a year or 2. And then Mr. Hassett, his friend who was kind of his instructor, moved closer. And we ended up moving over there. And when I went there, he didn't have kids jiu-jitsu. He only had kids karate. So I did karate with the kids, and he let me at like 8 or 9 years old do adult jiu-jitsu, which was awesome. So I was in adult class for jiu-jitsu almost my entire life. I liked the karate. I was way better at the karate because you didn't have to be, sounds mean, but you didn't have to be good to be good. Like you could
just
just
be technical.
You didn't have to be able to win. Like you could just be good at the forms. You could just be good at remembering techniques. You could be good at, we would spar and do a little stuff like that too. And I was okay because I knew jiu-jitsu, so I would just take the kids down. But, you could be the best student by memorizing the best techniques or doing, it's very solo-based. And in jiu-jitsu, I really struggled. But I liked the jiu-jitsu a lot more, and I wanted to be, either in, not, I guess MMA wasn't really a thing like that. It was, you're thinking of early UFCs, you're thinking of, like, we called it Valley Tudo, like, NHB. It was more like you were fighting with the flag of your martial art on your back. So I always loved growing up thinking about like the Gracies fighting in Pride in Japan, or like, even early, even though they weren't my cup of tea, is like people maybe like Tito Ortiz and Randy Couture, like those types of, that kind of MMA was what I wanted to do. So yeah, it was kind of always up from there.
So at what point were you like, I know you said you're better at karate, but what point were you like, I'm actually kind of good at jiu-jitsu, and how did you get into the MMA aspect? Were you like, I want to do this career-wise, or like, I'm just good at this also, maybe I'll do it?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Like I'd say, like at 10 or 12 years old, it's like I want to go to the UFC one day, and there's no money, there's no Reebok or Venom fight kits or it was just fighting. It was just competition, and I was horrible at competition, but I loved competition. So, which makes no sense, but. So I was pretty bad, really bad, from like 6 to 16, and then around 16 I started getting a lot better at jiu-jitsu. And back then I still am, like I'm a huge jiu-jitsu nerd, so I loved like watching ADCC, which now you hear that and you're like, oh, okay, you watch ADCC, but this is back when 2007, 2009, like you have to pay for each individual mat online for the blurry stream, like there was no, it wasn't Fight Pass and all that. So I loved that. I wanted to do like ADCC or the Worlds in Jiu-Jitsu. I wanted to go to Brazil and compete because in high school and stuff, like fighting didn't really seem feasible. I wasn't doing a lot of striking and stuff, all Jiu-Jitsu, and I just knew that didn't really. I was going to go to college, and I was like, it's probably not going to happen. But it was always my goal. So maybe when I finish college, I'll get a shot to start then when I'm on my own 2 feet and supporting myself. And lo and behold, like with a year left of college, I was doing only jiu-jitsu, but we had MMA guys at our gym, and basically the coach at the time would just use me to like keep them in check when they weren't training. So he'd be like, hey, spar with them, and I would just like pretty much hoist Gracie it, but better technique. Like I would wrestle instead of kicking the knee and clinching, but I would take them down and beat them up, and I was like, I can beat all these guys that are winning fights locally. This is in Myrtle Beach, and I ended up. Just some stuff happened where finances and this and that. I ended up dropping out of school my senior year, not because I wanted to, just because I had to. And back then they had like local fights in Myrtle Beach that were actually very popular. So like now they don't really have it. That league that they had, a promotion kind of went under. But somehow they turned it into an event. It was called Warfare MMA. And it was big. It was at the House of Blues. It would sell out. The fighters themselves would get pretty good sponsorship money from like local businesses and stuff, so it was pretty cool. And I sold a bunch of tickets because I was the kids class instructor at one of the gyms I was training at. And I think I made like almost $3,000 for my first amateur fight. I was like, this is awesome. Like if I do this every couple months, I'll be set. And then that promotion never had another show in Myrtle Beach, and I only fought out of town pretty much after that. So my first fight I made, I wouldn't call it decent money for like being a 32-year-old man, but as a kid trying to just cover some holes, I was like, this is great. And then it didn't happen again after the rest of that.
So
was
is
going
that $3,000 like show and win?
No, they didn't pay. It was amateur. So I sold.
That's just tickets.
Yeah, I sold a bunch of table seats up front through the cage. I sold a bunch of general admission tickets because I was the kids coach. So all the kids' parents were like, "Oh, we're gonna go." A lot of the kids came. I was also coaching a lot of the adult classes, so a lot of the members. And it was me and another guy that were fighting out of there. So between the two of us, this guy Cody Jones, who still fights, great fighter, good friend, and a great training partner. And he had a lot of fights. So it was his pro debut, it was my amateur debut. So between the two of us, we kind of split the adults. Like we would sell to some, he would sell to some, and then I sold to all the kids. So we had tons of people there. So it was ticket commission. I made like $730 in tickets, and then I think I sold like 10 $500 sponsors, and it was awesome. In my mind, I'm like, this is great. And then it never happened again.
You didn't want to go into sales or anything after that?
Yeah, exactly. And it never happened again. After that, it was all losing money to fight, and I did my 5 amateur fights in a year, or less than a year, and then I went pro right away.
So what are the qualifications to go pro?
It really depends on the state you're trying to go pro. Like right now, if you wanted to fight pro MMA, we could get, and we probably wouldn't even need to have medicals. You can get your medicals from LabCorp, your blood work. Me and you could go to Virginia and you could take a fight right now pro. And now you're a pro in every state. Virginia's like the Wild Wild West. They allow elbows, knees for amateurs. But then in New Jersey, where I wanted to go pro, because I think that was one of the tougher climates and better promotions, they wanted X amount of fights. I think it was 3 to 5. South and North Carolina, I believe, wanted 5. So I just did my mandatory 5. It served me well. It got me experience a little bit. But all 5 of my fights were they were all in the first round. So I think 5 fights, it was like a total time of maybe like 9 minutes in the cage.
And you won all 5?
Yeah, which was good, but it ended up being a little bad later on because I never
had the experience of going
I was
all
in
the
great
way.
shape, but I had never hit the stool. So like the adrenaline dump of having to come back down, go back out, later on I had to learn that lesson kind of the hard way. And so I did all those and then started fighting pro up in New Jersey at a place called CFFC, which is, I would say it's probably one of the 3 best promotions in the country. On the East Coast, probably the best. There's CFFC, there's Fury Fighting, and then LFA has become a big one.
Yeah,
That's
I know
kinda
Fury and
Midwest.
LFA.
Yeah, so those are all like the three biggest that kind of Fight Pass pushes. Tougher fights, but I would say, like, I feel like a lot, like if you fight at like, and this isn't a knock on like local MMA, but let's say like a local card in North Carolina, at Grady Cole Center or something, like sometimes, in my opinion, I feel like A, experience-wise, but B, you can look at it and go, well, that might be like a half win compared to one win at CFFC or Ring of Combat or something of that nature, So you may have to go 10-0 on those promotions, and if you're 5-0 at CFFC, they may start calling. So I just thought it was. My whole goal was I want to just find out if I could do this. I'm not trying to pad a record or get easy fights. And of course, when you're starting out, you're going to get some. I fought a guy that was 2-1, then 0-0, then whatever. I had one fight of a guy with a flipped record, and I was kind of not very proud of that. But you try to fight the best you can just to see if you can make it. That was my thought. I didn't want to waste a lot of time and then wake up and be 30 and go, oh, I never made it. I didn't have the skills. I just kept avoiding the fights that were going to tell me I didn't have the skills.
So what, like at this time, you're like 5-0. Have you met your wife, Casey, yet, or at the time?
Yeah, so I actually lost early on. I was 3-1.
Oh.
And so I ended up, every fight I ever had at pro was the same thing.
Pro.
I took everybody down. Yeah, I went 5-0 as an amateur. I went 3-1 as a pro. Every fight was a first round submission. All pro fights were takedown, back take, rear naked choke. The fourth guy I fought, takedown, back take, rear naked choke, didn't tap. Hit the stool, and then he just kicked the tar out of me for 2 rounds. It was like the worst sleep paralysis of your life, where your arms and legs aren't working. And I'm there, and
you can't get out.
Yeah, I'm not a coward. Because the ref will do fight back. I'm not a coward. I'm not going to not fight back and just quit and let him stop the fight. So it's like the worst, longest 15 minutes of your life. You're just getting beat to heck. And so I was 3-1 as a pro to start out. And yeah, I met Casey right before I started fighting. Maybe 3 weeks into us dating, I took my first fight.
What'd she think about you fighting?
She liked the UFC, so she knew what it was.
Okay.
She knew I did jiu-jitsu. And then, I told her on our second date, I was like, hey, what's your vices? Because I was a trainaholic. I mean, I still am, but now it's my career. But I was like, what's your vices? She's like, I don't know. I don't really this and that. What about you? And I was like, oh, I train a lot. I'm gonna there's gonna be times where I'm gonna go running at night. I'm gonna be at the gym late. I'm gonna be traveling this and that. She's like, I've never really dated anybody that had ambition. So it's not gonna be a problem, and it's never been a problem. Since that conversation, it's never been a problem.
That's good.
And she loved. I mean, now that we're out of it, we both look back and we're like, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was what did we even just do?
Very thankful for the memories and time, but man, that's no way to live, long term. But in it, both loved it a lot. Now with kids and a business and just a slower pace of life, I can't imagine that being our life, what it was. And it's much more tumultuous on the regional scene and amateurs and early pros than it is when you're in the UFC. But with the UFC, it's just a different type of stress comes.
So what year is this? Y'all met?
We met in 2015.
Okay.
And then I started fighting in 2015.
2019, you get the call to go to Dana White's Contender Series.
Yes. So I've been fighting just under 4 years. I think I was 3.5 years fighting.
So what was that like, you get that call?
It was exciting.
Was it just Dana or Hunter?
No, it's your manager. So he just texted and said, hey, this is the... he had asked me to send some footage in. They were missing one of my fights. So he's like, hey... Basically what they did back then, now it could have changed, was send a mass email to all the managers. We're getting ready for Contender Series this season. It was season 3. Anybody that meets these qualifications that you have, just send their names in. So they sent my names in. I had a small manager at the time. Big guy, small company. But I was the best 55er as far as record. I was 7-2. It was good, not great, just undefeated guys. But you can't back then, you couldn't have every guy on the season from the same management company. So I think it helped having a smaller manager. He sent it in. They reached back out asking for footage. I sent the footage. We never heard anything. And then a couple weeks went by, and he texted the matchup, the date. You don't get to say no. It was a good matchup, and I was going to say yes to anything anyway. But super exciting. But then after that little excitement wears off, I think I had 13 or 14 weeks notice. So you go into, for us at life at that point in time, things had cooled off a lot as far as the excitement. And it was man, I think I had a 450 credit score, tons of debt, just not good stuff. You're just in the hole big time. So it's really one of those pee or get off the pot moments, and you're like, oh crap, like this actually.
So when they send you the offer, here's who you're fighting.
Yeah.
Be honest. Were you ever like seen someone come across Contender Series or in the UFC, and you're like, gosh, I don't know. Or you're like, I'm him. I'm gonna knock him out.
I think there's two sides to every. Maybe not for everybody, but for me, I'm a realist. So I think every fight I've ever had is that, oh crap, I don't know.
This guy's good.
And then also the competitor in it's like, yeah, but I'm gonna beat him. So it's that balance. Like I love the scene in Rocky. One of my favorite scenes in the entire movie is when he offers him the fight and he says no. It doesn't mean he's gonna lose or he's a coward. It's just he's being real with himself. He's like, I don't know if I'm ready for this, And I think that's normal for everybody, because people lie and they do like the manifesting and the this and that, and like you really don't know how you're gonna handle it. And some of the guys I've seen break or just completely crumble are the guys that only speak positivity or I will or I deserve or affirmations, and that stuff's all well and good till you're out there getting hit, or you look over and Dana, Sean Shelby, and McMahon are sitting there, and you're in the toughest job interview of your life. So,
I was actually going to ask that, which is kind of crazy that you brought it up. Like from your perspective as a fighter, it's an individualist sport like wrestling. Sure. Like it's on you, win or lose. I mean, you have training with coaches and other people, but you're the one in there performing.
Absolutely.
So I was just asking, like, how much do you think about manifestation? Because you look at people like Sean O'Malley, he's pretty big on that.
Sure.
Or other guys, and it's like, I've thought about that too. I was just like, I believe in God. Like, I'm a Christian, so I'm like, he orders a man's steps.
Sure.
But still there's like Proverbs, I think it's 23:7. My dad tells me all the time, as a man thinketh in his heart, so
sure.
he is. So
sure.
You can't think of yourself in a negative way.
Yes.
But I don't know, like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think in the, like, people say like they speak it in
like
existence.
The spiritual.
And I think, I kind of can't stand that mentality. But now I will say, when I started fighting, I didn't have the level of faith that I like to think I have now. I'm still, I always say I'm a white belt. I'm a white belt. Maybe I got a stripe. Maybe I complete a fundamentals program, But I was very much like a foxhole Christian. So like I'd pray on fight day, like, please keep me safe, That's about it. So I thought of like law of attraction, all these things. And I really think it's just, all those things just take Jesus out of it, right? Sports psychology, focus on the here and now and the present and the gift that it is for today to be able to compete and blah, blah, blah. All the things these old books, they have in common. They
it
just
all makes
take
it about
all
you.
They replace Jesus with you, but everything else is all biblical principle, So now, knowing what I know now, I think that's kind of nonsense. I'm much more realist. Like we'd have guys that would say stuff, like my buddy John Salter was one of the biggest influences in my life and career, and he would talk about all the time, like how tired you're going to get in the fight. Not because we're out of shape. He had a great gas tank. I had a great gas tank. Because it's just a real thing. You're going to be exhausted. The body's not built for that pace, that long, 5-minute round, And like guys in the gym that weren't at that level, he was fighting for the championship in Bellator. He had been in the UFC. Like, he's the highest level. And they'd be like, oh, don't say that. You're not going to get tired. And I'd be like, bro, why don't you worry about like your 500 regional record and let the guy that's been there be the realist and talk about it. Like, it never stopped him from fighting hard. It was just acknowledging the truth, So I much more am that approach. Like, I much more am like realistic. Like, yeah, I'm gonna win or I'm not. Like it's not like this. Like, I'm gonna see the ball, be the ball. It doesn't work for fighting because there's another person imposing
who's
their
also
will.
thinking the same thing.
Exactly. Like, pitcher, batter, yes, it's just the ball. I can just focus on the ball. Once that ball leaves his hands, out of it. But he doesn't get to like actively move the ball while I'm swinging. Like, this guy's trying to beat me down too, and he's thinking the same thing. And 50% of everybody in this cage is going to lose that night. There's 22 fighters in the card. 11 are going to win. 11 are going to lose. So, I got away from that. But I do think you can't just take the approach of like, what's going to be is going to be, so I'm going to eat pizza every night as I train. It's like, no, you still have to do the work and train as if you're in control of the outcome, and then when the time comes, realize that you're not. You're in control of your efforts and your decisions, but that's about it, So that came later in my career that I really held on to like this type A mentality, probably through Contender Series. That's probably the closest I've ever been to like an actual like mental breakdown, because there's just so much stress, and if I lose that night, I'm probably not going to fight again. I would have been 7-3. It's okay, but you already got your shot. I was 25 at that point in time, which is young now, but in my mind, I wanted to be in a big promotion by then. Yeah. So it worked out. It went well. It was great, and then we got signed.
So you got in. You won the Contender Series. I think you won your next fight, I believe.
Yep, the debut, yeah.
And then, didn't you like move gyms a couple times?
So actually, we started out in Myrtle Beach. I trained at my first couple amateur fights were at a jiu-jitsu gym, Sarah Jiu-Jitsu Myrtle Beach, with this guy Frankie Patches, who, later on we ended up like kind of having like a falling out.
Yeah.
But like I was talking about the other day to some of my students in the car, I needed to train under Frank. I really enjoyed my time training with Frank. Like, he was an awesome guy. We had a lot of fun. It's just life hits and things happen, and the gym went a different direction, and he just had stuff going on too. So, but training with him was huge, and honestly, just a mentality. Like, it taught me a lot about kind of standing up for myself and just doing the things I needed to do. It put like a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, which would be bad now, but was good then. So he helped me a lot, and he helped me a lot with the fundamental jiu-jitsu, so it was good. And then I trained at Fitness Edge MMA in Myrtle Beach, and that was awesome. At the time, there was a head coach there who has his own gym in Myrtle Beach now, this guy Derek Kennington. He had fought in Bellator. He was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so that was kind of my first introduction to a pro that was, he was still our peer, like he was our friend, but he was at the tail end of his career the last couple of years, so he had kind of been there and had a bunch of fights, super helpful, and he had fought at CFFC, so when I was going up there, he was kind of cornering me, helped me with pad work, and that's where I met my boxing coach, who I used for the rest of my career, this guy Chris Goud, who was awesome. And he was phenomenal. He was just dedicated and just loved boxing and didn't care about what you can do for him or are you going to shout me out, just the most selfless guy. And I trained with him till the end of my career. And then after my 5th pro fight, I met John Salter, and he was 90 minutes or an hour and 45 minutes up the road in Wilmington. And that was a different level. That was a level I had just never seen. So he was getting ready for ADCC at the time, so he was tip of the spear in grappling. He was in Bellator, killing it, working toward a title shot. And most of all, and it sounds kind of hokey, but like I remember saying this to Casey, like, if we move to train with this guy, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen fighting, but we'll be better people as a result, because he was so strong in his faith. That I was like, I have a lot to learn from this person, I learned a bunch of other stuff too, besides just fighting in faith. Like, he's good in business, a lot of things. But, so that was the move we really made. So, was from Myrtle to Wilmington, and that was in, right after we got married. We got married, the next month we moved. It was in 2018, and we were there until 2020, the end of 2023.
Then you came up to, like, Belmont, and Jimmo.
Yeah.
That's where I met you.
Yes. Yeah,
And
so we left there.
that was like your last couple fights, right?
That was my last couple fights, yeah. And I would say we had a great training recipe with Salter. It was just a phenomenal recipe for, like, he just had the grind mastered so well, but like channeled into like technical sessions. And then, sometimes you go like, the grass is greener, this is that. And I think I thought I was going to get more training partners my size, because, John's an 85er. And then he had one main training partner, Corey, who was a huge help for both of us. But when I would want to train, for fights, I'd have to get guys. I'd have to go to Myrtle Beach still. I would go train my buddy Cody. He's a 70-pounder. I never really had any other 55ers around. So I was like, I was coming up and doing camps here. And then the travel was just, we were having our second kid. So it was more like a logistic decision than I've squeezed all I can out of this place. Like, there was so much to learn from John still and be there. But it was kind of like this is going to maybe be better for our family, we thought, as far as we were coming on and kind of had some business dealings in the gym that were going to help us, where Casey maybe could stay home. We didn't want to have a second kid in daycare, and then not have to travel as much. So that was kind of just, that was more like logistics than anything. And then, of course, having access to an MMA gym and where you do everything at once. But now that I've done a little bit of everything over 10 years, and you're starting to see it come back a little bit, I do think there's some value in training outside an MMA gym and then putting it all together with your MMA teammates, like boxing and doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling and wrestlers. And I think that's what we had in Wilmington that was pretty unique. And it was kind of old-fashioned, and then in turn ahead of its time, because making a comeback, you watch guys like Taporia and stuff.
Yeah, but I thought that was really cool. As soon as you came here, or at least close to us, Belmont, Gastonia. I watched your last 3 fights. When Chris Weidman I think he did 2 more while he was training there.
Yeah, I think he did 2 or 3.
We watched Brian Barberena.
Yeah.
I remember him. He was training at Jimmo. So when Brian Barberena I think he was on a main card pay-per-view.
Yeah.
We were watching it, at one of our family friend's house, Rondell. He was on the podcast also. But when it showed on the screen, Gastonia, North Carolina,
Yeah, yep.
It's like all of us 8 dudes on the couch. We're like,
Losing
oh
your
my
mind.
gosh, that's us. Like, you know, we've never seen that. So that's
Sure.
why I think I'd went to UFC 287, like in the spring. I think he fought in the fall, then I went to 287 in the spring.
Wow, yeah.
That was Izzy versus Pereira.
Yep.
And I was actually rooting for Pereira, but Izzy knocked him out.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is cool. I was like, maybe I like doing as much as I like watching it.
Sure.
So I started training the gym out a little bit after school. I found out real quick, I didn't want to get kicked in the legs. Like I had pads on. I'm not doing shin to shin. I was like, you see people like Francis Ngannou,
Yeah, like it's nothing.
or Pereira. They start like early 20s. I'm like, oh, I'm only 17. And then I thought, I'm not going to go in here and choke anybody out.
Sure.
But I'm like, I've worked out for 4 years or so, or I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years consistently. Like I feel like I was strong. Like maybe they just won't tap me out as easy. Like
Sure.
I could hold my own, dude. They were putting me in like a pretzel any way they wanted.
Sure.
I found out fast how it's not much about strength and a lot about technique.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I would say that, not strength, but in the striking arts, size definitely does matter. Like, the untrained person is still going to be, way better off against a trained person. I'm sorry. The trained person is going to be, fine. But, there's a lot of smaller people that if you're Francis Ngannou size and never trained, self-defense-wise, punching them in the face or kicking them in the leg may not do that much just because of size. But you see it real quick in the grappling, especially. The size only matters when the technique is close, is close.
Yeah.
And it can be a very humbling experience for a lot of people. But that's something that, from the teaching side of things is like back in the day, it was very common that you had to beat people down when they come into a gym. Like it's just like you got to get humbled and you got to point out that you know nothing and this and that because no one really believed in it because it wasn't as mainstream. Even when the UFC was popular, let's say like 2010, 2012, it still wasn't popular worldwide, just in the community. The people that knew it knew it. But now, when people come in, it's like, you don't really need to do that. You really need to actually build people up most of the time because it is so popular, it's almost intimidating. Before you were getting people coming in going, I'm going to beat everybody up. Now you're getting people coming in going, I don't want to get beat up. And you have to almost kind of, not hold their hand, but kind of ease them in and be like, no, you're going to be fine. Like, no one's going to hurt you, which is a complete 180. And in my short lifetime in the sport, 26 years training, it's gone from one to the exact opposite. It used to be that you have to beat people up to make them believe this works, and now you have to make people believe that they can do it, which is the complete opposite.
I was thinking of something, literally just forgot, but that's okay because there's this other question I wanted to ask. So at the end of your career, I saw you went on like a 3-loss losing streak, but I watched all of those. Like I remember I was at my grandma's house eating dinner on Monday nights, and I was like, I got to watch this fight, pull it up on my phone. That's how I was watching them. So at what point did you have to decide, hey, this is it?
Yeah. Well, I always kind of set a boundary of, as a lower pro, it was if I ever went to 500 again. After a couple fights, if you're 1-1, you got a chance still. But like, let's say I'm like 3-1. I go, if I'm 3-3, I'm gonna be done. I'm not gonna take the time to climb out of that hole. And then after I got a good record, like I think I was 5-1 at one point. I go, if I ever lose 3 in a row, it's done. In the UFC, it's different because it is how you make your living. So, sometimes I think you kind of, depending on what you're making, you go, if you're making 6 figures to show, you go until you're not invited anymore, Where I was at, it just wasn't, not to sound ungrateful, like I was making, it's so funny when you fight in the UFC, either people think you're rich or people think you make no money at all. And it could just be a normal living, That's kind of the window that I was in. Of course, we have bonus or something that kind of changes the year. But I just go, man, like for where we were at, I had, one freakish ending to a fight. My mistake, 100%, like valid win for the other guy, but just getting slammed was just.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was the worst. And then, just opposition that is really good. Grant Dawson is a freaking stud. He's always around the top 15. It's a tough fight.
You were ranked, correct?
No, I was the highest I got was in the top 25, which isn't an official ranking on like Tapology and stuff.
Still pretty beast.
Oh yeah, it was great. No, for sure. I always say the same thing, right? If each weight class is a position in football, let's say it's a receiver, that's wide receiver 1. You know what I mean? It also means millions of dollars in football, but at the end of the day, it's not. But so that tough opposition. And the last guy I fought he's gone on to do great things.
He just fought this past weekend.
He's doing phenomenal. So just tough matchups.
Kind of boring fighter, but
yeah, for sure.
He's a beast.
But you gotta if you can't stop it, and
Yeah.
and those are just tough matchups on paper. I think for me there was guys in the top, 20 or top 15 that maybe were more strikers that I go, man, if I get them down. The better wrestler, I didn't grow up wrestling. I got pretty good wrestling over time, but with guys like that, that's their thing. So it's like, man, that was the worst stylistic matchups. And I thought I was going to get cut at the end, just going on a 3-fight losing streak. My last fight was 10 days notice. And when we emailed at the end, I kind of got back from my last fight to the hotel, and me and Case talked about it, and I was like, I'm good. And I'm like, they're probably going to cut me anyway, though. And then they didn't. And then Scott Holtzman was managing me at the time. He reached out to Sean Shelby and was like, hey, any update for Joe? And he's like, I'll get back to you with something in a few weeks. And I was like, I was kind of hoping they were going to release me. I mean, if I'm thinking like that, it's time,
Yeah.
If I'm not going to be the best or one of the best, I'm not making a life-changing amount of money, just a normal amount of money. Like, I could do that doing anything. And it just seemed like it was time to transition into the next thing. And, for me, I always wanted to... more than fighting or anything, the reasonable, realistic goal for me was, John Hassett, my coach growing up from, 6 to 19 years old, and he's still my coach. I go home and train with him all the time. Was kind of my North Star in the sport of jiu-jitsu, right? And, he did some great things.
He changed your life.
He changed my life. And he did some great things in competition, but he wouldn't call himself a competitor. He would call himself a jiu-jitsu instructor, and that was always my thing, And then fighting, you get the accolades, and people want you to coach MMA and all this stuff, and spent a little time doing that. I don't know if that's the industry I wanted to be in. I got to go on a couple fight weeks before I retired with other guys and kind of be an observer on a UFC fight week, not in it, so you can really take it in a little more. And it was like, once you see like the magician's trick, you just you don't ever fall for that trick again. So you see it behind the scene, like, I don't know, this is just like any other industry or business, It's like, what do I really love and want to do? And, I liked helping some fighters. That was fun, but it's a lot of time away. There's not a lot of return on it. And, so I really was, and even when we were over at the other gym, was pushing for like growing the everyday person who wants to learn martial arts. Because that's, just from a business model, it's better because there's more people. I heard this from Mike Swick, who runs AKA Thailand, and I'll never unhear it. He's like, man, when you go to the UFC, and you watch, there's 2 guys in the cage, they're typically broke, and there's 20,000 in the arena who had the money, time, and disposable income to pay to come watch. And most people market to the 2 people in the cage instead of the 20,000 people that had the, and also I look at it like this, like a lot of times with fighters, not pro, I don't mean like UFC level fighters, those are very rare and hard to come by. Like your average, I want to be an amateur fighter, sometimes you're just putting a gun in somebody's hand that doesn't need it. It's going to be a jerk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like
they'll be out one night and fight somebody.
Yeah, or just have an ego for no reason and hide behind I fought locally and I've never actually tested myself in the highest levels or anything like that. And it's like, I don't know if that's doing like, again, we go back to faith. Like, I don't know if that's why God put me here. Like, I don't know if he put me here to teach jiu-jitsu, but I know it isn't that, so that a guy can have this crazy dopamine hit and adrenaline high one night and then treat everybody like a jerk the rest of the year. Whereas like when we were in the gym, I was seeing people that were coming into my class. I was just teaching jiu-jitsu and, families that are spending time together, people that are losing weight, this, that.
What's up, guys? We had a little bit of technical difficulties and it cut off, so we're back and doing it again. And when I rewatched it, I actually noticed one thing that I said wrong. I said I was watching one of his fights on a Monday. They don't have fights on Mondays or on Saturdays. I'm just so used to eating at my grandma's on Mondays. But it did end at a good time, right when he's talking about retiring from the UFC. So let's just jump right back into it.
Cool.
When you retired from the UFC, how did you not let it become your identity?
Yeah.
Like you see some of the fighters today struggle when they get out of the sport.
Well, first I thought you were just so supportive that you were just rewatching my fights on a random Monday. I was like, oh, wow. It is tough because we're seeing it now. We're seeing like a lot of the guys that retire are really, really struggling. Now, I do think, for them, it's like a blessing and a curse, right? They reach this level that is way higher up than anything I would ever come near, So at the time, that's great for them because they're going to be way more financially well off and, have more opportunity to develop, endorsement deals and all those things. But at the same time, it's kind of like a double-edged sword because now, I mean, that's a whole nother level of, I don't know, like you think you're strong in your faith or, maybe they're not men of faith, maybe they have these ideals or whatever, but it's like, it's like money or anything else. It's a great, what is it, like max, it's like it's a reveal, it reveals, right? It puts you, so for me, I think I'm kind of, maybe it's glass half full, but I think it's kind of a blessing to be like, well, I made it to get to kind of do all the stuff I wanted to do without maybe achieving what I had hoped I'd achieve. Because then you're just at the end of it, and really what you learn at the end of it is everybody's just a regular person. Like I hate the term, but like you're just a regular person. Like an actor's a regular person, a baseball player, it's all regular people. But for me, it's like my life was never any different than a regular 9 to 5, other than the fact that I loved what I was doing. So the hardest part is as a competitor, I think, having to let go a little bit. But I love jiu-jitsu. I've always done jiu-jitsu. So for me, I just kind of went right back to doing that. And even at the tail end of my career before I retired, I really, more than ever, was enjoying the teaching. Like I've always taught since I was old enough to teach. Since like the first time my coach at home, John Hassett, let me cover a class when he went on vacation, and then I got to do a couple private lessons. And then when I moved to South Carolina, I started with the kids program. So I've always enjoyed teaching, but going to that being the main thing, I wasn't sure how that was going to go. And all of a sudden, like after one of the losses, it wasn't the last fight I had. It was like noticing more of the people that were coming in the gym just for jiu-jitsu class. And like, oh, that person's coming along. And I was starting to find more of my attention going to that. And I was like, okay, I think this is, way more fulfilling. Because A, you can do it forever. And then B, it's like, it really is more enjoyable to watch other people succeed. Now, if I didn't get to compete at the levels I got to compete, maybe I wouldn't feel that way. Maybe I'd feel like insecure about something or anything like that. But the coolest thing is like when you fight, you get to find out how good or not good you are. So it's like you're kind of at peace with the outcome as far as like, yeah, I don't ever have to sit at a bar stool and be like, oh, I could have, only I got a shot. Like, no, I got a shot and I did some of the things, and then some of the things I failed at. So, as a competitor, those failures lead at you forever. But I think that's where faith comes into, is like, I strongly believe like, God's hand is all over this, as far as, whatever, a loss, like, oh, why did I get slammed here and get knocked out when I should have won, maybe you're protecting me from something.
Yeah,
or maybe
did you ever struggle with that? Like question, like sometimes ever get mad or be like, why would God let this happen? Or you were pretty okay with how everything worked out?
I mean, only at myself, being like, why would you do this and not that? Like from a performance standpoint, but I've never felt like frustrated or questioned God. And I think that may be like, I'm a Christian now. We go to like a non-denominational church. I was in the Baptist church, but I grew up Catholic. And like, while I didn't have a great relationship with Jesus during that time, because it was more like, I'm not saying that all Catholic churches are like this, but just as a kid coming up, it was very much just like, I'm afraid of God, and then I say all the prayers that tell me to pray, like very routine and ritual. What it did teach me is kind of to shut up and just know that God is God and I'm not. So like I would almost be like afraid to ever be like, God, why did I lose this fight? So I think that kind of helped me. But of course, as an athlete, you always question yourself. Why would you put your hand down? Why would you take this bad takedown attempt or something like that? But no, I think it's all gonna play out the way it's meant to play out, and for me, I think I was kind of playing with house money in the sense of like, I was never good at competing in jiu-jitsu as a kid, so like it was always just get good enough or get the belt rank that would let me teach other people. And then I got pretty good, so I got to go kind of live this little pipe dream, became a reality, and now it's right back to what the plan was all along. At least my plan, God's plan's always different, but it seemed like they kind of aligned there, my plan and God's plan, and I get to do what I always wanted to do since I was a kid anyway.
Yeah. You said something really interesting there, that like you were afraid of God, and I was kind of felt that way a little bit. I used to always think that God was always disappointed in me, or that he was just frustrated. And I read this book, well actually I read the first chapter and never touched it again. It's called The Knowledge of the Holy, and in the first little bit it says, what you think about God is the most important thing about you. So I was like, what I thought about God was like that he was disappointed in me. Like I almost like believed it and it was wrong. And it like trickled down into my actions and how I lived my life, and then thought about my own self. So like, where did you, I guess maybe going just to a different church, like how did you get from this like, I mean you need to have a fear of God, like a
sign of wisdom,
good level of respect, but not that like everything you do, God's gonna like, oh, I can't believe Joe would do that.
Well, and I think obviously like getting into church as an adult was huge, right? And then the kind of church we were going to was much less, just repeat this prayer, and it was much more teaching and learning the Word of God, which I had never really, in school we have religion class and stuff, but I think just like as a kid, a lot of it we did was mandatory. And then, in Catholic church, it's a lot of kneeling, like it's a lot of things that are kind of like, I'm ADHD, so I don't sit still super well, and I'm like fidgeting, and then you're not really listening to whoever's preaching is saying. But I think especially getting in a church that was like a Bible believing church and like really teaching from it, super helpful. And then what you're talking about, like that fear, like of course we should have fear of the Lord, but like I only looked at it kind of like what you're saying, like you're disappointed or you're gonna like strike me down. And I think parenting has been really big in that too, is like getting that viewpoint of like, oh yeah, like my kids do things. Like, I don't want my kids to disrespect me or cross me in the sense of like being rude or, hurtful or any of those things. So yeah, fear, like I'm I got a picture of my grandfather right there, and I always say, I'm afraid of my grandfather in the sense of I would never disrespect him, you know what I mean? Rest in peace. But I also know he loved me. You know what I mean? And same with my father. Like, same thing. I would never dream of like trying to purposely disrespect my father. But it's not because I'm afraid of them. Like when we're hanging out, I'm not sitting there nervous. Whereas I think like even praying as a kid, I'm like, all right, God, I'm coming before you. Like, and now as a parent, I go, oh my gosh, like my kids do dumb things every single day. She's about to be 6 and 3, like they're knuckleheads, And I absolutely adore them even when they do those dumb things. So I think it's like that opened my eyes of like, oh my gosh, and I'm not, I try to be a great father, but I'm a human being. I'm flawed. So it's like the perfect heavenly Father looks at us and like how much more grace does he have, and of course he's going to correct our course, and there still has to be righteousness and all of that, but it's like, oh, like I'm not a burden to you. You don't hate me. You're just probably shaking your head like I'm a toddler on earth, being like, all right, you did this again. So
that's a pretty cool point of view that you have
really
and that I don't, because being a father yourself and seeing your own kids make mistakes, it's like, you don't want to be over, discipline on them and to where they get resentful towards you.
And even honestly, like it's a terrible analogy because like, especially in jiu-jitsu, we can have like an unhealthy culture of like a coach putting themselves up here, kind of like a cult. And I don't mean that. The coach is not God. I'm not saying that. But even as a coach, like you'll watch your students go like, oh my gosh, like you're just starting. Of course you're gonna turn your back when you're mounted or these things. And like people will always apologize and be like, I'm so sorry I made you. And you're like, I made you look bad at the competition. You're like, oh my gosh, like no, you're not making me look bad. I just want you to have the best results. Like you're just kind of shaking your head like you're not mad. You're like, no. These are mistakes we all make. I just wanted you to get to avoid them, or like, so it's kind of the same thing. Like you're looking out for everybody going, we're going to make mistakes. It is what it is. But, or when you get like the person that kind of becomes like the know-it-all in class and you're like, well, actually, and you're like, you're veering off the course. Like we all do this at Purple Belt. I was trying to protect. It's like a father or anything else. It's very similar, and even if you don't have kids, I think you can look at, if you have a good dad, like you can look at that same thing and be like, oh yeah, like I made all these mistakes and I was still loved unconditionally. So that helped me a lot when my daughter was born. Now as they get older, even more, because we get to communicate more. When they're babies, it's pretty easy to just love everything they do. And then, when they throw temper tantrums and stuff, you start to learn how, I don't care. Like, yeah, I don't want you to do that, but I don't,
It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's unconditional love, exactly.
Yeah. So talk to me about the business that you started here. We're in Gastonia at Solecki, BJJ.
Yep.
Tell me about how you started this.
Yeah, well, I always, since I was a little kid, wanted to have a jiu-jitsu school. At one point in time, I was doing karate and jiu-jitsu when I was a little kid, so I guess karate school as well. We just do jiu-jitsu here. But so much so that there was a kid in my 8th grade yearbook that like mockingly wrote like, good luck starting your jiu-jitsu school. And here we are.
Dan, you still have that book?
Yeah. And listen, cool. Danny, we're here making tens of dollars, all right? So the joke's on you. No, but, so it was always something I wanted to do. And then I started fighting, and then, you fall in love with fighting, and you try to be, you don't try not to worry about anything after fighting. You have to simultaneously plan and pretend like this is the only thing. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll coach fighters one day, or maybe I'll, do so well I wouldn't have any other career. You always dream these pipe dreams. And then we moved up here, and we're training MMA, and I was, because I was coming back and forth for training camps to get good training partners. And when I came up here, I started coaching jiu-jitsu at the gym and, started helping out some of the fighters, not a bunch. And then that brief little period after I retired, we were like coming on as like management and then ownership. And then, things just go their separate ways like they tend to do and it's actually probably for the best. They'll say like the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership in business because it's, me and my wife are partners here, but it's a little different, right? We're already in this for life. So it's like, we're always solving things together. So it's a little different than having like an outside business partner that you're not like married to, I think. And so we ended up starting here. And that was, I retired in January. in hindsight, I wish I would have just then and there taken the leap of faith and been like, I'm going to start it right now. Just because, when you're fighting, you get paid only when you fight. So you have X amount of time to make that last, and it's not like we're making crazy money in the UFC. So I would have just, if I could do it all again, the only thing I would do, which again, it's all God's timing, so I wouldn't really change anything, but if I had to do it, I would have just started sooner, because it'd be cool to see what this place could be with, 8 more months under our belt. But so I retired in January, and then right before July 4th, my wife and I had a conversation about like, hey, I think this might be the best thing, because as a parent also, and this is what a lot of people didn't understand, and even not to turn this into like an episode of Maury or something, but with the gym we were at, like people get hurt feelings or upset or this and that, and until you walk in somebody's shoes, and especially as a parent, I think that's the thing people don't think about, because they go, well, why can't you just do the thing and just get the paycheck like everybody else? And you're like, well, yeah, I understand that, but the biggest thing for me was like I have 2 children at the time, and we have a third on the way, and a wife. And I go, well, if something happens to me, and we don't have like actually anything saying we're like an owner or something, well then my wife, who's a stay-at-home mom now, is up a creek without a paddle. Like I have to make sure that whereas here, it wouldn't be ideal if I walked out of here and got hit by a bus, but we own the business. We could always hire a black belt to teach or sell a business, or so it was like really long-term thinking. But a lot of times with fighters, you're dealing with like, I call them like boys who shave, not grown men, because it's just like you do Peter Pan. You get out of high school and you just start fighting. You hang out with your buddies all day. So they don't really think like that. When you get to explain your case, they're like, oh, it makes sense. So it was a lot of that. I just wanted to own something, because after 10 years of fighting, but 6 years full-time in the UFC, me and my buddy John Salter would joke like we're unemployable. We got up every day and did what we wanted to do. I mean, maybe I didn't want to do airline sprints, but we did what we wanted to do. I hung out in the gym all day, so it's like I don't know if
it's hard to go to a 9 to 5.
Yeah, like, and not that I'm above anything. I would do anything for my family, but it would be kind of tough to have somebody being like, Joe, you're 2 minutes late. Like I'm like, even though here, what you learn real quick is even fighting and everything else, you answer to something or someone, right? You answer to accountability. Like if I take off during fighting and my opponent trains, he's my boss, I just didn't realize it. You know what I mean? Like he did when I didn't do my sprints and he shows up and I'm out of shape, I answered to either him, or you can call it accountability, but I definitely had a boss, And the same thing here. Like if I show up late for class, there's not gonna be students here very long, So you all answer to somebody. But so July 4th weekend, we were talking about it. I'm like, I think this might be best. And again, this is just, people will call it coincidence, and I'll only call it God's hand, because there's a guy who runs a company called Easton Online. His name is Elliot Marshall. He started in, he went to the UFC. He did ADCC for jiu-jitsu, and now he runs a consulting company for, jiu-jitsu specifically, jiu-jitsu schools. And I was like, man, my coach at home started using him, and here's like the 6 degrees of separation. You go, well, Elliot started, he fought in the UFC, he lives in Colorado, and he started martial arts at 5 or 6 years old as well. He started in Williamstown, New Jersey, at a place called Garaguso Karate, and one of his first instructors in karate was my instructor, Mr. Hassett.
Dang, y'all live the same life.
It's unbelievable. And so he ended up moving to Colorado for college and starting, and that's a whole story in itself. But and then when Mr. Hassett was visiting him a couple years ago, he's like, dude, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, your business is huge. Like, so I remember him talking about it, and I go, I'm gonna just shoot Elliot a message and see if he answers. Like, hey, this is the thing. How much would it cost to get on a phone call with you or whatever? And it's just funny because you get in your own. No matter how grounded you are, you think in faith. I go, well, he might answer me because I have a blue check, or I fought one of the guys that was on his team and he knows me from the UFC. And he ended up taking our phone call and telling us about the program he runs. We signed up, but he was like, hey, like if you ever need anything, I usually tell people they get to their consultant, and then I don't really deal with people too much in this program. He deals with the instructors that are really trying to grow the gym. This is like called Launch. And he goes, but if you need anything, feel free to reach out. I'm like, yeah, because I'm the UFC guy. And he goes, because I owe a debt to Mr. Hassett for always being so good to me, and if you're with Mr. Hassett, you're great. And that just shows, in my opinion, the whole thing of, not that none of it matters, because these are all talents given from God and opportunities, you got to use them, but Mr. Hassett never fought in the UFC. Like, yeah, he was great in jiu-jitsu, but he's just been a really great instructor. He got obsessed with jiu-jitsu, and he uses that knowledge. And I joke when I go up there, he more preaches than anything else. Like, I go, man, I come for the sermonette, and then we also do a little jiu-jitsu. But he's just always been a good guy, a good godly man. And it's like, that counts way more than any accolades or anything else. The reason you were going to help me was because he was such a good man. You look up to him, and if I'm okay by him, and it just like, bing, and that's why here largely we do a lot of like we have competition training and stuff. Like if you come in, you want to compete, I want you to be able to do well. But we do a lot of like hobbyist jiu-jitsu in the sense of, are our techniques any more watered down? Or no, we study all the latest jiu-jitsu, but I go, I'm never, ever, ever going to be like, Levi, why weren't you in class? You're like, I'm studying, I'm getting my degree. Oh, yeah, that's probably more important. You know, like, and that's where the turn from fighting to like, what we're doing here is not the same as like a fight gym, you know, it's, and not to put them down, I'm going, it's not competition, it's nothing, like, we don't even do the same thing. You know, we're looking for people that aren't looking for that are looking for an outlet, because jiu-jitsu is a million different things for a million different people, right? Some people, you just don't know. You really don't know, and sometimes people will tell you a year or two later, hey, we had this going on at home, and this actually, I can't remember who it is, and it's probably for the best because they won't even know I'm talking about them. I don't even know that I'm talking about them. But it was somebody that was having a hard time at home with their marriage. And I knew this person for like 2 years before they ever said anything, and they were like, it strengthened it, and this, and I'm like, we do arm bars and triangles, but you're like, yeah, but what it was for that person, it was an outlet to get strong or get a little more confident or to blow off some steam so they're not going home as ticked off afterward, whatever. It's different for everybody. And if you told me that at 20, that would have been the most valuable thing. I'd have been like, no, I want to coach world champion. And now, like, you know, we've had some people that want to come in that are really good. And I go, oh, yeah, I enjoyed teaching you the same way I enjoyed teaching, you know, we have families where the...
Hey, didn't you just have a family day or something?
We just, yeah, we had, so we had competition day. And, you know, it was 18 adults and 6 of the kids came because their parents trained. Then after practice, one's jumping on their dad's back, choking them. I posted the picture. I'm like, I love that, though. And sometimes, not that I'm being long-winded, but sometimes most of the time, the kids start first, which is really funny because it's like, you'll be a parent and you're not even old, right? I go, I'm 40, I'm old. You're not old at all. You're not even halfway through your life, you know? But you go, I can't do that crap. And then you watch your kids doing it, and so many of the parents have come out and been like, hey, can I book an intro lesson? I want to try this. And I'm like, that is awesome. Like, that may change the parent, because maybe you don't have time to go to the gym or this and that because your kid has activities. Well, now you're already here. You can hop on after them and get your workout in. Maybe it makes you healthier. It's something that we have a 14-year-old girl and her father train here, and they came, a couple of us had matches, like an MMA card, but it's jiu-jitsu, like one match at a time, super fights, downtown. And I said to Dad, I go, how cool is that on a Saturday night, like your daughter wanted to hang out with you as a teenager? In what world is that happening? Because you're like, oh, Dad doesn't understand, but you have this one thing that you guys can do together where while this little rough period of just teenage chaos, you'll have jiu-jitsu to bond over, and then when that's over, you'll have, you know, life, you know. So it's super cool, and I never would have thought of it like that, and I don't know if it's getting my butt kicked on TV or just, you know, spending a little time in fight culture and this and that, but yeah, it's been so cool. I mean, we're 10 months in or 9 months in. I got keys a year ago last week. And yeah, just to see, I mean, last night we had 24 people in we had 3 classes last night, and one of them had 24 people. Like,
which class was that?
The advanced class. It was mind-blowing, you know, and it's just very cool to see. And then kids' class is always kind of crowded because, you know, the kids is, you know, parents want something different for every kid. Some parents want their kid to be a world champion, which I would caution against. You know, you want them left. If they want to be good at this, I would want to be left when it counts when you're, you know, an adult. If you're trying to be a competitor. But for the, you know, it's confidence, bullying, you know, even behavior. We see it all. And it's super cool. It's super cool to see. That's
really cool. I enjoyed coming for the month that I did before I go back to school. And
yeah,
it was super, like, casual. Everybody's nice, or like we're learning, but it's laid back where you can enjoy it, or
for sure.
You don't have to go super hard for coming in not knowing much.
And there's I didn't
feel like it was too fast.
That's what I was gonna say. There's 2 camps in jiu-jitsu where it's like, if you run it where it's like member friendly or user friendly or whatever you want to say it as, I feel like then it's a McDojo. And that is very true. Like, you come in and you go, you're not gonna roll for 6 months. Like, well, what are you protecting me from? Eventually I gotta do this tough thing. And if I am not comfortable with it, you're just taking my money for 6 months before I get to, or there's like hey, come on in, here's one move, survive. And you're like, well, that's not a way to get good, so people get discouraged and leave. We're trying to do both, right? Where it's like, okay, we have all the things that, like, I think a McDojo does well. You'll come in, you'll sign on the iPad, like procedures like any other business you'd go to. We try to keep it really clean, have branded merchandise. It's not required, but just so that people do want to rep their team and stuff sometimes. And then we go, but we're going to train proper too. So like that fundamentals class, I think, is the sweet spot. The one that you were in is like, we're going to train live. We're just going to do it from what we're working on so that we can get good and comfortable. Give me 3 months and you'll be comfortable in every position, you know, a little bit. And then it's off to the races. And like, man, we have seen that with every confidence. I've seen it with like overconfident people. It's kind of not humbled them because no one's been arrogant, but like made them be like, oh, I have a lot to learn before I wanted to go in the advanced class. I couldn't even pass this teenager's guard, you know? And then on the flip side, the people that are like a little shy, it's like brought them out of their shell in that 3 months. And then everybody has transitioned to advanced class so well. There's nobody ever that's been like, I didn't like that, I want to go backwards. And it's just been like this gradual takeoff for everybody. So it's like user friendly, but you're still going to be, if you come on the mats, you're going to get tougher than you were every single class, just a little bit. And that was the goal. And that was something that we took from that Easton Online with Elliot Marshall.
That's good. There's something I wanted to acknowledge that you said, talking about Easton and then your coach, John Hassett. It was almost like a picture of the gospel there. You were like, here's this guy, and he was like, because you know him, I'm going to work with you. It's almost like, you know, God the Father, when we die, he's going to judge us. You know, why should I let you in?
Yep.
It's like, oh, Jesus' blood for my life.
Yep.
That's just what I thought about.
That's a great analogy.
I was like, dang, that was the gospel.
Yeah, I had
there.
a pastor one time that said, if you say anything other than you, don't be. You're gonna be very humbled very quick.
Yeah.
Like if you say, why should I let you in? And I say anything other than him, you're like, oh man, like you're gonna be humbled very quick.
Yeah.
You know, and we see that in life all the time. Like, I mean, just, and this is again, I loved my time in the UFC. Like it was awesome. I loved competing in jiu-jitsu. And my coach, John Hassett, has a very humbling, funny way of going, nobody cares. Not like nobody, he'll go, and even with your problems, he'll say it to me, joking around, I go, Joe, nobody cares. And I'll go, I care, but nobody cares. You know, like, because it's the case. Like you go, I'm gonna make it to the UFC and then all the problems are gonna go away. Like I'm gonna go and people are gonna be like, oh, you're in the UFC, by all means, have whatever you want. You know, and people go, like, no, like nobody cares. Nobody cares. You go, I got a black belt. People do this in jiu-jitsu, they obsess over belts. I just wanna get a black belt, And you're gonna work, for me, it was year 17. I started as a kid, so you got to go through all the kids' belts. But for most people, it's like 8 to 10 years. So I was on the long path. And I get a black belt, and then you tell somebody you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and they go, oh, so is my niece. She's 7. And you're like, no, you can't have a black belt. She's in karate. I'm in. Nobody cares, dude. Like, you have to do stuff for you and to glorify God, you know, and for fellowship and all the good reasons. And
Did you ever see
UFC
that guy that like supposedly got his black belt in like 3 years?
Yes, yeah, Moneyberg, Derek Moneyberg.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Probably pay to play, but you know that's another problem with the sport, right?
Yeah.
Is if there is no income in the sport, now these guys are willing to, like, you know, you're gonna kind of you're gonna overlook your integrity sometimes to make up for the money that maybe they didn't make in the UFC or in grappling or whatever they're doing, you know. So they're like, oh yeah, I mean, and it's all hearsay, but I've heard that he pays very, very well for private lessons, you know, so. You could get some knowledge, but
I saw a lot of people online like critiquing him, saying it wasn't like
you could have the knowledge, but the application.
Yeah, like 3 years versus 10 years.
Like you see it with like BJ Penn or like these guys that are on the mats all day, but they're also young, athletic kind of freaks. Like BJ Penn could jump out of the pool with no hands onto the side of the pool. That's a different kind of athlete, you know. So I do believe that kind of guy in 2 years, he won the world championships in 2 years. That's different. I don't think Derek Moneyberg is that level of athlete or any athlete.
Is there anything that you wish, I know you said you would have started sooner, but like when you opened your business, because my dad, he owns his own business, he talks about some things he wished he knew earlier. Is there anything you wish you would have done differently, like just spent the money, bought a bigger space, or like,
Sure.
you know, like with, I guess, memberships, like, I don't know, just anything you would have done differently?
Well, we made all the mistakes. I always, because I had a couple buddies open gyms since then, and I'm like, hey, if you want to know what to do, join Easton. And if you want to know the mistakes not to make, ask us. But I don't think I would change a thing. I mean, the only thing I would change, and this is just stupidity, this isn't like a business practice or anything else, is when we did our Founders Club, we did like a Founders Club pre-sale, which again, this is just like just blessings, right? Is you go, all right, we're starting a Founders Club, we're going to take sign-ups before we open. And we opened with almost 40 members, which is mind-blowing to me because we didn't even have a picture of we had a picture of the warehouse, but not of like mats. Like we could have been crazy people for all you know. So 40 people to take that leap of faith was really cool. But when we were doing the Founders Club, we didn't have our like a business line. And me and Casey are Casey's from Myrtle Beach, and I lived there for a long time. So our phone numbers are a Myrtle Beach area code. So I go, when we were calling leads that would fill out the forms, I think a lot of people were sending us to voicemail because it looks like a bill collector, like a random area code. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if we would have had a Charlotte phone number, we could open with like 60 members, you know? Just dumb things like that. But as far as like who we've attracted, how the culture has gone, how the skills have been developed, like I really don't think there's anything I would change just yet. And even with the space, there's bigger spaces out there, there's nicer, 100%, but it was just meant to be. Like we live not far from here. We're able to be in and out all day, so my kids can come in and out, and that's kind of what I wanted. Like I spent so much time traveling when I was fighting. I was like, I don't want to be away from home, unless it's for like a competition or something, but I don't want to be, because I looked in other spaces, especially with trying to keep the distance from where we were training at the time, trying to be X amount of, maybe 20 minutes away was what I thought was like a fair distance, and we discussed and came to the conclusion was a fair distance. So I was looking like I was looking all over the place, and I go, man, if I was 35 minutes from my house, like this would be terrible. Like I don't know people commute all the time, but it just with little kids and all that, like the whole perk to Casey being home.
Up in Charlotte.
Exactly, and that's the thing is like, and it let me work here, so I was still coaching at the time. I was still getting to see the kids, and then I would just come down after I put them to bed and work from like 10 to 3 a.m. every night, and then I'd work all day, go coach, do it again. So I was able to be here constantly.
And didn't you do everything in here besides like the air conditioning?
Yeah, they raised the HVAC unit and then some of the electrical. My father-in-law helped with a couple of outlets, and then everything else I got to do myself. Which
you put the mats and all that stuff up?
I did actually literally. I mean, I had a couple people offer, but I'm not one to like. I don't like, in jiu-jitsu this happens a lot, and I'm really adamant about not doing this. It's a business, and I think it should be treated like a business. So if somebody's gonna help, do something, like a perfect example, and this isn't to pat us in the back, this is just talking about if anybody is in an academy, you should make sure you're not being taken advantage of, because it's very easy to go, well, I'm the coach, and you're the white, blue, lower belt, and I'm paying you and getting to do something for me, and that happens all the time, and it's just an abuse of power. So like if somebody, like when we were on vacation, one of our guys that teaches here was going to come open up for the cleaning. There was a cleaning crew that was going to clean. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to send you payment. Like, he's like, well, you don't have to do that. I'm like, no, I do, because if not, it just becomes this weird perpetual, you feel like you owe me because I'm the black belt and the owner. So like, even with that, I'm not going to put a post out and be like, hey guys, we're dropping mats today. Who wants to come help? Like, I know it's community, I know it's friendship, but I've just been like fell victim to that too much. That I just didn't want that vibe. So I did everything. I transferred the mats from storage, put them on the U-Haul, pulled them down, laid every mat, but it gave me a sense of like not unhealthy pride, but like a good pride of like, yeah, like I laid the floors, I did all this, like welcome to, so I want to keep it cleaner, I want to take care of it. This isn't some magic thing that just a contractor put down. And I'm like, oh yeah, the gym fairy came and laid all this. I'm like, I remember doing everything here. So it's like, it makes, I think it gives us a sense of like pride, cleaning it up, taking care of it. And when you come in, it's like it really, I made a post a little while ago, I think, and I was like, when I would fight, I would always be like, oh, tonight I'm going to show my life's work, And I said it the other day, like that's not really a real glimpse of it, because it's one little glimpse, 1 day a year, 2 days a year, and so many things can happen. I'm like, no, like this actually is my life's work. Like I got to train martial arts all these years, go fight, drain my savings that whatever I had left from fighting, and put it into one effort, and then got to actually kind of build it myself. So it was a really trying time. Like it was a really just stressful, difficult time. It was like a 4-month window, and it was super cool, And the craziest thing about it, we only looked at one other space. I had a bunch saved on whatever, it's not Zillow, but it's whatever the commercial real estate website is. And we looked at one, and it's kind of funny. We walked in, I was like, I can see this being an academy, but the location wasn't the best. And then I'm not like one's like superstitious or anything. On the wall, someone had broken in graffiti, and it just said demon. I looked at Casey, I go, I don't think that's a good omen. And then I'm going home looking at other places, and I go, this one is like X amount from our house, it's like 5 minutes. And I'm like, this is it. It was actually next door, but same wall. They were one unit at the time, so they just kind of sealed the wall up. And I looked at it, and I'm like, and we came and looked at that one, and the only difference between that one and this one, same layout, was that didn't have an air conditioner, and this one was all offices, but it had air conditioning, and the contractor's like, oh, he's not gonna wanna put an AC unit in here, he can lease this to anybody, but he goes, you wanna see next door tomorrow, because he'll wipe the offices out anyway. And I'm like, that in my mind doesn't make sense, but I guess that's like it's very easy to do demo. And whatever, we're sitting home, I go, all right, we found the space. I'm either taking that or the one they show us tomorrow, but we're in. I don't care, I've already seen enough. And we look at the date, and it's July 9th. July 9th, 6 years prior, I got signed to the UFC. I was like, what a weird, like, again, like, call it whatever, but I go, I don't know, I feel like God had his hands all over that, And especially on taking a big leap of faith, because there was no, other than fighting on Contender Series, there's no bigger leap of faith than taking everything that's left and going into business, and it's just been a great year. Tough, but good, you know.
You've had a crazy life.
Yes and no. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, like
cool, with fighting and stuff. Like people on
life.
fight, yeah. It's been
Everything's worked out.
fun, but it's not actually hard. Like I would say that. Like I would say my favorite thing about fighting is like I call it manufactured hardship. Like yeah, it is. It is super hard, but it's like a chosen hard.
Yeah,
like
so
hard,
at least you're not in war.
Exactly. Hard is that. Hard is your kid's being born and you're fighting a war. You know, your child is sick, or like that's really, really hard. Fighting is like a manufactured. You can stop anytime you want. You know, like you're in too deep and logistics and stuff like that. But it's like that's just. It's all in your head. It really is all in your head. Like getting knocked out doesn't hurt. Getting punched and kicked doesn't hurt until afterward when the adrenaline comes off.
So when you're in there and you're fighting, you don't really feel much of anything.
Not much, no. The end, I started feeling stuff, and that was probably a good sign too. I'm like, I remember, but I think the last guy I fought just hit really hard. Because not actually, like I'm not a sissy, but I remember being cracked and being like, in my head, like, ow, like why are you hitting me so hard? And then I had a broken orbital after that fight and a fracture in the upper jaw. So he really did. I was like, oh, I guess I'm not. I thought in the fight, I'm like, man, my chin is going. Like every time he hits me, I'm seeing stars. And then I'm like, oh no, he broke my face. Like he hits hard. And I was like, all right, I'll pat myself on the back for not getting TKO.
Tell me about a time like you ever got rocked or got hit hard, and like he's like wailing on you, coming to, I guess, rain down strikes.
Yeah.
And like you either gathered yourself or something like that.
Yeah, there's different
like
types.
what's that experience? Because I've never experienced like
Yeah,
that.
you don't need
Most
to.
people that are going to listen have no idea what that's like.
Those smart people will never experience that. It's like there's a couple types, right? So like in training, we had a buddy in Myrtle Beach, great training partner, his kid Cody Jones. And, you know, thankfully and not thankfully, thanks to training with Cody, I know what it was like to be rocked before I ever fought. Because he's just long, he's like 6'2 and a half, 6'3", and he just snaps his shots really well. So there's a couple times where like he'll hit you and you hear like that, like a white noise, almost like a car accident, like whoa, and you're still with it, but you're also kind of not. Then there's like the knockout, like that's like lapse in time. Like when I got knocked out in one of my earlier pro fights, I remember hearing my corner say, move your feet, and then laying on the ground. And then I really don't come to or have any memories from then till we're in the back room and I'm laying on the mat. And then it all kind of comes back. And they were asking like what year it was and all that, and it was just, you're just like, oh my gosh. And then there's kind of like just like the equilibrium shot. And that's the ones where I'll have memories of like, okay, like in the first 10 seconds of one of my fights, and I ended up winning the fight. I got dropped and your legs, it just looks like a demolition job. Like your legs just go, like you just fall, like you just have no legs. And on the way down, I remember I thought I hugged his arm. But I have a picture of me and my head is like this, flat on the mat, and him punching me. I don't know if it woke me up or what, but I was with it the whole time, I swear. And then I just grabbed his arm and like got back to it.
Well, you see stuff like that. People get knocked on the way down and wake up when they get hit again.
Yes, yeah. And I'm kind of stupid, so I'll just like, my internal dialogue is not, I guess, what like a sports psychologist would tell you to be like, tell yourself you're the best. I'm like, I just kind of like, there's a lot of like little thoughts that come and go when you're competing that are like silly. And I remember like being like, well, this wasn't good. Like just like laughing. And I remembered an interview where I was like, yeah, this guy's dangerous. Like he could face plant me in the first 10 seconds. I could have to fight back from it.
Then you spoke that into
And I was
existence.
I was like, this could be like Daniel Cormier and Anthony Johnson. And sure enough, it was like 9 seconds, bang, drop.
I just saw something on like the UFC's show they do, like that Deep Waters.
Yeah.
Where they asked like a bunch of the guys, like Dean Thomas, Dustin Poirier, Chris Weidman, like what was the craziest thing they thought of while fighting? Like Dean Thomas was like looking out in the crowd, it's like, oh, that girl's hot.
Yeah.
Or Dustin Poirier's like in clinch, like, oh, there's Dave Chappelle.
Yep.
And Chris Weidman was like, just thinking like, I can't remember what he said, but it was just funny. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it really is
about
like
while
that.
you're doing there.
100%. It's and sometimes it's like funny stuff, and sometimes it's serious stuff, and then like in the moment you're like, why did I make that
Yeah,
face?
you ever
Like,
been doing it? It's like, why am I thinking this right now?
yeah,
I'm gonna fight.
I gotta get back in. Yeah, absolutely. I one time, because Casey's always the loudest, like everywhere. She's just the loudest human being ever. And I had a fight, and it was kind of short notice. Like I knew I was fighting, but then I didn't get the fight booked. This was before the UFC. It was my last fight before the UFC. And they sold out. It was CFFC, so they always sell out their shows. They're a great promotion. And I got a couple of tickets that I was able to get family members in, so I had like 5 or 6 family members. But my family's not like, it was like my aunts and uncles and cousins, and they're not like rowdy people. Like they love sports, but they're not like, they're just like, this is crazy, we're here to support you. We don't watch the UFC outside of that. Like, go Joe, but we're just hoping you don't get hurt. And Casey got in, and Casey is the opposite. Casey is crazy at fights. So no one's cheering. Like I used to sell like some of my earlier fights on the local scene, it's like 70 tickets. So then it's hard to hear your coaches. But I can hear my coach, John Salter, like clear as day. And he's talking and walking me through everything. And one of the things that had happened a bunch was I'd take the guys back, or I'd mount and try to strike him, and he was really like slick and good at moving, and he would get out. So I was like winning the fight, I take the guy down, I mount him, and all you hear is Casey just screaming her head off, elbows, elbows. And like she's on this side of the arena, and then over here's my corner, and I hear John he's like very calm, and he's like, no, do not elbow. And it was just like, in the moment, it was like, because I was exhausted, it was like the exact thing I needed to have like a little laughing moment, like, you're so ridiculous. Like, it was just like funny, and it was like, devil on your shoulder, devil on your shoulder, angel on your shoulder. I'm like, I'm gonna go with John. He's been here a million times. So
did you at least think about it?
Yeah, because you hear stuff, and sometimes you just, like, you find yourself doing stuff that people say, and it's really goofy. You're just in that flow state. Like, even I remember that fight specifically because there was a crowd, but nobody that I knew, and there's this weird lapse, like, if you finish in your corner of that round, like you're waiting for your team to come in with the stool. So I'm like hanging on the cage, and the people in the first row were talking to me, like, hey, you're doing great. And I was like, I don't even know these. Like, you just have these little thoughts, like, I don't even know these. Like, what is going on right now? It's so goofy. It's very strange.
So there's a numbered card this weekend, 3:30. So walk me through, in order, however you want, but like maybe like a fight week, or what's it like to walk out to the cage?
Sure.
Maybe.
So fight week, I mean, it's different for every level of fighter, right? Like, so when I was fighting, it was mostly one time I was the fight before the co-main event, but I wasn't supposed to be. It was COVID, so it was like people were dropping like flies for COVID, like testing the day of the fight, pulling them out of there. I was like the second fight on the prelims. Next thing you know, I'm the fight before the co-main event. I'm like, how the heck? So that was a little different. But other than that, I was usually on the prelim portion of the card, or I spent a lot of time in that, and people try to make you feel good. They go, you're the main event of the prelims. You're like, that's just another prelim fight. But I was like usually they call it the featured fight. Yeah. Like right before, I think like 3 or 4 times I was that fight, which is pretty cool. And the times we were that fight was like the least exciting fights. So, so my schedule was never like crazy like that. But typically, like, you'll fly out Tuesday. You can fly out earlier, like toward the end of my career, just because, when you're home, and I love being with the family and everything, but I just wanted to get away, as not from home, but just like I was coaching, I was in the gym, and like I tried to be nice when I was fighting, but I would definitely get irritable. So I just wanted to be away from anybody that wasn't in my bubble, because it just becomes a lot of like, and it's just stuff that people are being nice. And now, as a
people always trying to send you texts. It's like, dude, I'm getting ready for something.
Yeah, and it's totally nice and kind, but you're just not in the right state of mind. Like, and this is what, if I could change one thing about me in my like early 20s, especially starting out fighting, was just I could be a real jerk in the training room, not in the gym as a whole. Like, if it was just a normal session, jiu-jitsu class, or like I was pretty good, but I could be a jerk during like my time, and I wish I could go back and be better. But that's sanctification, right? That's part of the Holy Spirit. But I would get annoyed with like just stupid, like, how you feeling? You're like, what do you mean how I feeling? I gotta go fight this way. Like, just so, like, it was just better.
People like, are you ready?
Yes.
It's like, don't ask me
I
that.
would laugh a little better toward the end of my career, but even then I go, it's just better to divide and just get away. So I would start going like Monday, maybe Sunday night, and just take like one of my teammates and just go and settle and just kind of get away. But yeah, so you usually fly in Tuesday, you'll check in at the fighter hotel or whatever you're gonna do, and then something else we started doing at the end was like getting an Airbnb. Just for logistics, it's nicer to be able to cook your own food, and for me, I would get nervous for fights, so like I don't want to be alone. And if you have a hotel room, it's very easy for people to be like, okay, well, I'll leave you to it. And it's like, no, this is the worst. Like, I don't want to be alone. Like, oh, we'll let you get, and I'm like, don't leave me by myself. I'm gonna go nuts, So yeah, you'll check, but even if you get an Airbnb, you check in at the fighter hotel, you'll do like sign in posters, and they'll check your weight and all that stuff. Wednesday is typically like a media day. Sometimes I'd be invited to media day, sometimes not, just depends. Now, if you go with somebody like, I got to go on one of Weidman's fight weeks, like, he has like 4 pages of sheets of obligations. I'm like, I think they give me mine on an index card. But, so like, yeah, you'll do like your little media day, you'll do sometimes like updated pictures and stuff. And then Thursday, sometimes you'll meet with the commentators. So like in the morning, you'll go down, you'll talk with them. And what's cool is, especially like John Anik and like the guy that's like or Brendan Fitzgerald, like the guy that's like the actual play-by-play commentator, they do such a good job of making it feel, and they do because they want to have stuff to talk about. Like, they really get to know you and what you're doing and what that camp was, and they have an index card on what you used to, their old notes. They add to it, like, as much as, like, well, okay, well, how old is your son? When was he born? Like, and they'll try to talk about it on the broadcast, which I always appreciate. I thought that's pretty cool. And then,
I do remember one time they were like, two people were fighting. It's like,
yeah,
both of them are going through a custody battle.
Yeah, maybe took too many notes in that meeting. Yeah. But yeah, they just do cool stuff like that. I think John Anik especially is like very, very wants to get your story right. Same thing with Megan and Levi. So you'll meet with them sometimes on Thursday, and then that's it. And then in between, something I didn't learn till I got to the UFC, and it was my really good friend and coach John Salter at the time, was like learning to enjoy a little bit. Like when I was an early pro, I was like very, almost like I don't know if it was just like I didn't think this, but almost like a karma type thing. Like, oh, if I relax at all in fight week, I don't deserve to win. And it was like a very good thing to be around John, because he was like, Joe, you're only going to work out once a day. Maybe, like, sometimes I would stretch in the morning, run a little bit, and then do our workout at night or vice versa. But what else can you do? You have 24 hours in a day. You can only sleep for 8. Like, what are you going to do all this time? So, like, my first UFC fight was in Washington, D.C. We would go walk around, look at the monuments. In COVID, when they started letting us out again, we would go to, like, Topgolf for a night. Like, we just find different things to do. And that was where, like, during COVID, we got, like, instead of having a hotel room and having to get a second one for your corners and pay casino rates, they started putting us at the Residence Inn, because they created like a bubble. So it was like you had almost like an apartment. You had like a bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and I would bring a Roku. We'd watch shows all week. We'd play games. It was a lot more fun. So after COVID, I started getting Airbnb, and then you're basically just hanging out. And it's really weird because you'll go from like doing normal stuff to doing fight stuff to being nervous. You're doing your shakeout with your coach or whatever, and then you're going back to being normal. And
what's it like cutting weight?
That's the part that really, really is just horrendous. Like, I mean, it is what it is. I never had a time where I was like dying, but it's not fun. It's just not fun. I mean, it's just like, because you're already bringing your body weight down very, very lean.
You see so many guys that cut 30, 40 pounds.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, for me, I always tried to stay close to my fight weight, in the sense of like, where I would still cut enough, but like, when I started fighting, I was walking around like 162 pounds fighting at 155 as an amateur. And then by, early pro, I was like 167. That's 12 pounds. You diet a little bit, you cut your water weight. And then by the end, I would get to like 178, 180, and now you got to diet down to, 170 when you get to fight week, lose a couple pounds every day. I would start cutting from like, 67 or 68. It's 13 pounds. It's not nothing, so you're draining that water out. And, I do feel like I was never a complainer. I would stress during the weight cut, just about like, I remember one time, I just felt like I got dry and I couldn't get the second sweat to break. I was like, let me go run, I'll get it off. Like, I would stress, but I wasn't ever whiny. Like, I just can't stand the whining, man. Like, the guys that whine, like, dude, we've been in here for 20 minutes. What are you doing? Are you whining? Like, this is part of the job. Like, it's just kind of, I don't understand that, because that's the prerequisite to fighting. You got to be able to make the weight. And so I don't feel like I had one that was like pretty bad. And it was kind of,
when you fought, was it bad?
Yeah. So I cut. We went to, and if I'm going too long, I can talk about this stuff all day. So just be like,
no, I'm loving
play
it.
The Oscar music, kick me off of here. But we went to one of my fights at the end of COVID. I guess it was 2023, so it wasn't really COVID anymore. But they were still in the Apex and everything, and we weren't really able to get tickets. Like, now they built the Apex out, you can get your 4 tickets for your people. We weren't allowed to have anybody there. So that was kind of wearing on me by the end. Like, I was so used to always wanting Casey with me. Then I went like 4 fights without ever having her with me. She never missed a fight before that. And I like having her at my weight. I don't know. She just like helped me out, But we went to a health club. I wanted to do a hot tub first, and I was like, all right, we'll cut X amount tonight and see how it goes, and then we'll cut the rest in the morning before the weigh-ins, because the weigh-ins are like 9 to 11. So I was like, I'll get up at like 6 a.m. and cut the rest. But then you start cutting and you start coming off a little bit. I'm a little like type A. I go, I don't want a chance waking up and now you're racing the clock. I used to cut it all the morning of the weigh-in, so I wouldn't have to be dehydrated overnight. But then you don't sleep well either way, because you're stressed about being on weight, and either way you're not sleeping good the night before the weigh-in. So I started cutting some the night before and some the day of, and then that night we went and we went to some health club. It was weird. We were just kept calling it a fever dream. It was just it was like an 80s theme. Everything was neon. It was a hot tub, but it was like a pool size, just narrow. I've seen McGregor there. He rented out the whole place for one of his cuts. I don't know what it was called. and everyone was just acting weird. Like it was just a bunch of guys that were like, I'm like, is this like you leave your families at home and come here and you're all acting weird? Like they were all like kind of flirtatious with each other. It was just a weird, and I'm like half with it because I'm cutting weight. I'm like, this is a really weird atmosphere. But whatever, we cut our weight and some of it, and then we went back and I'm like, I'm still too heavy. Like nothing's coming off the way it usually does. Like let's just keep cutting. So we set up the sauna, and so these little portable saunas they give you during COVID. It's like a little infrared sauna. Your head is out, and it comes with a little camping chair. And I don't know if this is why the weight cut didn't go well. I have no idea. I have a couple reasons I could guess why. But one of them, I ate a little too close to cutting because whatever. I got car sick from an Uber, but I don't think that was it. I had like a little protein bar. So I'm downstairs checking my weight on the UFC scale because they'll have one in the hotel. And my buddy Zach, who is my cornerman for a lot of my fights, calls me. He's like, "Hey, there's a problem. There's no chair with this sauna." And the UFC provides them. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what are we gonna do? We're like, all right, we'll call downstairs and see if we can get like a shower chair from like the handicap showers or whatever, So it's like, oh, we'll get you one. I'm like, in the meantime, put the desk chair in there. I don't know if this is right, 'cause I'm definitely not a science guy, but it was a leather chair and it was super hot. Oh. So I was like, dude, I was in there for like, the whole cut was like 9 hours and nothing was, like it was just such a slow sweat. And I think that the chair was absorbing all the heat. And it wasn't getting hot in there like it should. Like all the heat was going to the chair instead of it being in the air. It took so long, and I was like, that's the only time I ever felt like delirious. Like I was just sitting like, ugh. And then there's a knock at the door, and it's like 1:30, and Casey came in, and I'm like, then I really thought I was like, that's the first time ever in a weight cut. I'm like, I'm hallucinating. This is it. This is what people talk about. And I'm like, what? What are you? And I guess she had been at work, and she's like, I don't know. Like something told me yesterday. I'm sitting at my desk, I'm like, this is stupid. Like, I may not be able to go to the fight, but they're not in the bubble anymore. I'm gonna come out and just be there. And I can't go to the fight, so what? So she came out, and like, that last 2 hours, like, I didn't get to bed till 3:30 that night. And that last 2 hours, like, it just gave me the perk that I needed to like, and then she's like, all right, I'll take over, rubbing ice on my neck and all this stuff. And it was like, that was like.
Did you get it off?
Yeah, oh yeah. And that was the worst I ever felt. And then I won the fight the next day, or 2 days later. But then the coolest thing is where I saw like the UFC staff, like the UFC as a whole, it's a huge organization, so maybe you don't get the best individual treatment or fighter pay. It's a business, but the employees are awesome. So like Megan Levy that does like the interviews before the fight or after, they come up at weigh-in sometimes like, oh, tell me about your camp and this and that. And I said, oh yeah, it's really great. This and that. She's like, I said something about, yeah, I did a lot of traveling away from my daughter, and then my wife's here and she's pregnant and she can't get into the fight. And she's like, why can't you get into the fight? And I was like, well, we don't get tickets. I'm on the prelim. And she's like, no, hold on, wait, go see so-and-so. She should tell you. And she like nodded. She's like, he's coming over. And they got Casey into the fight, which was pretty cool. So, and we got some free maternity photos because she got to be in the back room after I won. So we got to take our photos with the UFC, which is cool.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was cool. But the weight cut, it's horrible. You watch guys really suffer. Man, it's just, but if you don't cut weight, you're going to be behind. So it's just, you got to do one or the other,
Yeah. Did you ever think about moving up? Mm-hmm. Too small?
I'm not big enough. Yeah, like I'm not even 180, so it's like, you can do that, but I'm also very short. So like,
somebody like
I'd be
me,
short and weaker.
Like if I were going to fight, I'm like 5'10", like 205.
Yeah, you would probably be at 170. But now when you get to the UFC, now you go, well, it depends what our body composition is, depends how much we can change our body, so it's...
Because, this weekend is Islam at 170 versus Ian Gary, who's like 6 foot something.
Yep. And they're huge, and Islam is undersized, which is crazy, because if you see him at lightweight, he's way bigger than everybody. He'll get into the cage, and this isn't out of camp. On fight night, he'll be, 190. That's crazy. 189, 188. It's nuts. That's 33 pounds he gained back in a day. That's crazy. There should be a way around it, but there's just not. And because if you don't, there's always going to be a way to game the system. If they hydration test or same day weigh, and if you do same day weigh-ins, which would be the fairest thing, well, now if you miss weight, now the fight's canceled. They can't risk that. They have to have a guarantee. I don't know. It's crazy. It's not good for you, I'll tell you that. But I don't think any of it's good for you. None of us got into it because it's good for you.
Well, just wanted to ask if you got any advice. So I've been asking a lot of my people that I had on any advice for life advice, financial advice.
I always tell everybody
business
on the mats,
advice.
I'm like, I'll do a mat chat about jiu-jitsu, but I never do like the life advice. But no, I think the best thing anybody can do if they're watching or listening is just find a good Bible-believing church, put your faith in Christ. Like that's. We had a little girl here last night, one of our instructors' kids. She's like, Coach Joe, I'm getting baptized Wednesday. I go, that is the best decision you could ever make, and then that can't be taken away. Like the coolest thing about everything is all of this. It's all worth doing, whatever it is, running a business, whatever it is. Like it's all worth doing for sure, but none of it matters at the same time, which is the weirdest. Like because at some point in time, and people do this in every sport. You go, oh, Joe Montana is the best quarterback of all time. Oh, well, Tom Brady's way better than him. He was never even that good. Like they even found a way to take, and now it's somebody at Patrick Mahomes, and then the next, all of this is fleeting, and money and this, that. Oh, well, this person would never have had a successful business if this person didn't give them a loan. Like, it's the only thing that's guaranteed is we're gonna die, and you're gonna go to eternity, and there's one way to do that I believe, So, I would recommend that. And then I think the other thing, just like if it's like secular or earthly wisdom, is just surround yourself with good people. I don't mean good people, but also the right people, like people that are going where you want to go or have been there. And it doesn't have to be. Like you may have a business advice. I'm very bad at I don't really separate the art from the artist. So maybe it could be the most successful business advisor, but I probably wouldn't work with them if they're a jerk or not good to their family or something. But point being is if your goal isn't to be, because people will do this, like, oh, well, this person's rich. You're like, well, okay, but maybe they're a horrible husband and father. You want to be a husband and father one day, so you need to get around good husbands and fathers. This guy is an awesome Taekwondo guy. Yeah, but you do jiu-jitsu. That's not going to help your jiu-jitsu. Maybe they could be, so it's like people that have done what you want to do or can help you on what you need help with. When I want business advice, I usually ask someone who's good at business. I don't ask, someone that's just a black belt in jiu-jitsu that's never had a business. That wouldn't really make sense. If I want jiu-jitsu advice, I'll ask them. And I think people do that, especially in martial arts. You see it all the time. Like people will go to the black belt or the head coach and they're asking for life. I go, dude, this guy's giving you parenting advice. He's never had children. Not that can't be a thing, but I would probably ask someone who, and that's a huge, and again, just if anybody's watching that does combat sports, that is a huge misconception in combat sports, that the good athlete is the successful person. When I laugh, I go, dude, if you're in jiu-jitsu even, as the black belt or whatever, you go, your students are probably way more successful, whether that's in business or in faith or find people that are black belts in those things. And that's the mistake I see a lot of people making, and I think I would have made it too, just God's hand. The people we would go to fights with when I was starting out, it was so funny. We're the island of misfit toys. Not because we were misfits, just I go, okay, here's the group we're traveling with. Yeah, I have my coach, and then my wife, and then the one lady at the gym that was training that was a fighter, this lady Teeny, always helped us out, and we were really close, and I was kind of coaching her in jiu-jitsu, and she was fighting amateur. But she wasn't a training partner in the sense of she couldn't be my warm-up partner, but she was just a supportive friend, My bosses were two chiropractors. Their kids took my kids' jiu-jitsu class years before. And they're like, yeah, we want to come support you. I'm like, this is the most ragtag group of you're not fight coaches, you're the coach, and it just worked because you just had, those people have helped me after fighting. You know what I mean? I asked my old bosses for a lot of what we do here, even though they're chiropractors and we're jiu-jitsu, is stuff that I learned working for them. And it's some people get in an echo chamber and they only want to stay in that, and I think that can be super limiting and kind of dangerous for young people because you start to want to put everything into one person, and that can be really scary, especially in fighting. In fighting, people want to, and this is where John Salter was great. He had different coaches. He would encourage me to go back to Myrtle Beach and work with my boxing coach. Just the best. Some people try to keep everything in-house, and that's in all areas, and I think that's just super dangerous. It would be like a church not wanting you to open your Bible. So yeah, I think just surround yourself with good people, and I really do think that's what community is designed for, not to do favors and stuff, but to raise each other up. And Hassett would always tell me that since I was, his kids class analogies are kind of dark sometimes, but maybe that's why his kids program wasn't great when he was running it, and now his son does it. It's really good. But he'd be like, yeah, you hang out with 5 drug dealers, you'll be the 6th. I'm like, I'm 8, but it was true. And you see that a lot. I think it's really in your network. Because then no matter what happens, you're going to be good. I remember, and this is the last thing I'll say, but my buddy Ali, at the tail end when I was I had kind of decided 10 minutes back at being in the hotel room with Casey that I was going to retire, but I hadn't really said it to anybody. And then I was talking to him about it on the phone and this and that, and he just stopped and he was like, because he has a gym in Brooklyn. Not that I'm making his gym famous, like they're great. But he said, he's like, it's cool for my students to see me cornering in the UFC and this and that. He had said that so many times. And he stopped me when I was talking about what I should do, and he's like, hey, just so you know, you don't have to do this ever again. Like, none of us are here, some people were after all that, but he goes, none of us, at least him, are here because that you're in the UFC. Like, you could do whatever, like, it doesn't matter. And I was like, and that's validation that I have a great friend that I surrounded myself with, and that is why you're my friend. Like, and I think that a lot of people find out later that it's not the case, you know? Especially in fighting, because a coach's job, a coach, not an instructor. Like, I'm a coach too, like if you did a tournament, I'm your coach that day. But my business is teaching jiu-jitsu, right? So I don't have to live off any one individual. But a coach and a manager, they have to live off the fighter's blood. Because if a coach stops getting high-level athletes, that's the end of their career. You know what I mean? And if a manager stops having athletes believe and listen to what he says, that's the end of his career. So fighting, kind of like a lot of pitfalls in there. So I was really blessed, just a couple people that stuck it out to the end. You know, I noticed that at the end. I go, man, I'm very, very blessed that I had these people around, and most of them were not fighters. So,
well, I appreciate all that and everything you did, and I'm really encouraged by your mentality and faith and some of the things you said, and I've learned a lot from you just doing this, and even the second time. So I want to thank you for doing it a second time.
Hopefully I didn't ramble as much this time.
No,
but
it actually messed up, so we had to come do it a second time, and Joe was nice enough to do it, so I really appreciate it.
And also, just a disclaimer, I am a white belt, no stripes in faith. Like, just want to say that. Like, I'm a complete moron, but trying, you know what I mean? And that's half the battle showing up. So
I love it, just how like you can connect all these things, and even just your brain, anything we talked about, you connected it back to jiu-jitsu. Just
that's my filter. Well, you know, and this is why I think people like fighting so much. You can know nothing about it, and everyone loves Rocky. Why? Because yeah, they're boxing, but it's not a boxing movie. The first, you know, the ones in the 80s and 90s are definitely more action films, but it's like a life story, right? Because and if you listen to Sylvester Stallone, he'll say it's a faith story. It starts with the shot of Jesus on the top of the church, and then it goes down to the kind of the underdog, and he's always, you know, doing the sign of the cross before he fights, and little stuff like that. But fighting is like it's a metaphor for life, you'll hear people say. So it's like, that's why somebody that's sick will watch a fight and go, oh, like they call it, I'm fighting this disease, I'm fighting this addiction, I'm fighting, because everything's a struggle. In the Bible, there's so many analogies for fighting. What does Paul say? Like, I shouldn't punch at the air and waste energy. Like, yeah, that really is tiring when you miss throwing punches. But it's just an analogy. I mean, every day is a fight to get up and to let the Holy Spirit kind of take over the flesh, or vice versa. Like, there's so many analogies like that. And it's the only thing I really understand well. I'd say it's the only thing I have my black belt in is fighting and jiu-jitsu. So just for my own learning, I'll try to connect it back to that, because I'm like, that's the only way I'm going to get this, is like that and movie quotes, but there's not a lot of movies that really fit the Bible anymore. So,
well, you're not the UFC guy to me anymore. You're Joe now, and you're the man. So I appreciate
Thanks
you
for
doing
having
it.
me.
Thank you.
It was awesome.